knitting backwards, how to avoid purling and turning your work around. Hi everyone, my name is Norman. I run the blog nimbleneedles.com, and today's video is all about how to knit backwards the continental way with yarn held in the left hand. Knitting backwards, or reverse knitting, how it's also called, is an ingenious method that allows you to knit in the opposite direction. Normally you knit from right to left, and when you come to the end of a row, you turn it around and start knitting from right to left again. But because you're working from the wrong side, you need to mirror all stitches. For stockinette stitch, this means purling, and a lot of people struggle with the purl stitch. But it's not only that. When you're knitting short rows, or say entrelac, or I don't know, the bobble stitch, you need to turn the work around a lot. This is not only annoying and very awkward with bigger projects, it can also twist the yarn if you don't pay attention. And when you're doing color work like Fair Isle or stranded knitting, it's also often very hard to see the pattern from the back. And in all of these cases, knitting backwards can be a solution to all of these problems. Let's show you how to do it the continental way with yarn held in the left hand. First, I want you to understand the difference between a knit and a purl stitch. So for a knit stitch, the yarn is in back and you enter from left to right, and then you wrap the yarn around counterclockwise. And for a purl stitch, the yarn is in front and you enter from right to left, and then you wrap around counterclockwise. So everything is exactly the other way around, except for the way you wrap the yarn around the needle. It's always counterclockwise. So they are exact mirror inverted copies, and anyone who ever knit stockinette stitch has probably observed this effect. You knit different stitches on each side, but the front is all smooth and knit stitches. So when you want to knit stockinette stitch backwards, meaning you don't turn the work around here and go in the opposite direction instead and stay on the right side, it's very, very important to realize that you don't actually want to produce a purl stitch. You want to knit stitches. And the only way to produce a knit stitch is by inserting the needle from left to right and wrapping the yarn around counterclockwise. Now, how do you knit backwards? Let's knit a couple of stitches together. So, here I am at the end of my row, and normally I would turn my work around. Instead, my yarn stays in the back and I keep it wrapped around my left hand. And then I insert my left needle into the first stitch on the right needle, coming from left to right and into the back of the stitch. This can be a bit difficult for the first stitch. So here from left to right into the first stitch. And then I use my right hand to wrap the yarn around the needle counterclockwise. And then I lift that stitch over the yarn and drop it off the needle. And that's already it. Let's do it one more time. So insert into the back of the stitch, coming from left to right. Wrap the yarn around counterclockwise, and then pass the stitch over and drop it. One more time. So insert into the back, wrap around, and pass over. Let's do it a couple of more times in slow motion. Now you might notice that this feels a lot like English throwing, so you can actually copy a bit from English flicking or lever knitting. So instead of using your right hand to do the wrapping, you can also do it with the left hand. So you bring your needle closer here towards the middle and then use your left finger to wrap it around the needle. Or you do it like a lever knitters would. So you have long needles and you place the one end into a knitting sheet or a knitting belt or under your armpits, and then it's much easier to do the wrapping. It's a bit difficult to show this here in my tiny studio, but I think you can get the idea. If you don't like the passover part, you can also wrap the yarn around clockwise like this, and then you can pick the yarn through. See, you can pick the yarn through. This will result in twisted stitches, so you will have to knit these through the back loop in the return row, so a bit like combination knitting. Still, I think it's an important thing to know, because in this manner you can also produce twisted stitches when knitting backwards. Now, most knitters will probably knit across the right side rows the normal way, but maybe you're wondering how to purl backwards the continental way. Well, of course you can also purl in the opposite direction, and it's actually the very same technique. Remember how I said when you do a normal continental purl stitch, everything is exactly the other way around? Well, the same applies to purling backwards. So you keep the yarn in front, and now you enter not coming from the front but from the back, and then you wrap the yarn around counterclockwise and pass over. Let's do that one more time. So you enter coming from the back, wrap the yarn around counterclockwise, pass over. Enter from the back, wrap around counterclockwise, pass over. Let's do that a couple of more times in slow motion. So purling backwards the continental way is actually fairly easy. In fact, I would wager that some beginners might find it easier than the regular continental purl stitch. And the key to backwards knitting really is realizing that everything you usually do with your right needle, you have to do with your left needle. And the reason why I said enter from the back for a purl stitch is that you actually do the exact same for a normal purl stitch as well. It's just because the loops are twisted a bit on your needle that it doesn't feel like you are entering from the back, but that's actually what you do. So by combining these two techniques, you could, theoretically speaking, knit ribbing backwards. So bring the yarn to the front, insert. So that's how you would backward knit ribbing. But can you take it further? Can you also backward knit decreases? Sure. Just insert your knitting needle into 2 stitches at the same time. Wrap the yarn around counterclockwise, pass over, and there is your knit 2 together. You can also reverse knit a left leaning decrease. It's a bit more difficult, and you will have to change the order of the stitches first. So first rearrange these stitches here, loosen them up a bit, and then you can create a left leaning decrease as well. And as I said, if you want to create twisted stitches, then simply wrap the yarn around the other way. So at the end of the day, reverse knitting the continental way is actually quite easy. What won't be easy is maintaining an even tension across all stitches. So I really urge you to A, practice this a lot before you use it for a real project, and B, use it sparingly. You might be tempted to use this for your next short row project, or a lot of knitters commented on my entrelac video that they reverse knit the wrong side instead of turning the work every 6 or 7 stitches. But personally, my main focus is not being the fastest knitter out there or the most dexterous knitter. I want my projects to look as neat as possible. And I just found that no matter how much I practice backwards knitting and which technique I use to reverse knit, so a continental or English knitting, there is a little noticeable difference. And I often feel that some people stumble across an exotic knitting technique on the internet that really makes them question what they previously knew about knitting. Backwards knitting comes to mind, the Russian join, combination knitting, double knitting 2 at a time, and then they adapt it because it's new, it's fancy. And you know, I do that as well. But I personally feel that at one point you should definitely question if the results are truly better and if it brings you more joy. So I will use backwards knitting for the bobble stitch. If the gauge of these bobbles is not perfect, well, it really doesn't matter. But when I'm knitting short rows, it matters. When you're knitting entrelac, it matters. And when you knit big sections of stockinette stitch, it matters even more. So what I'm saying is practice this technique. It's a very useful thing to know, but use it only insofar it really makes sense for you and not because it looks fancy. That's a very easy trap to fall in. Anyway, that's how to do backwards knitting. Please like this video if you enjoyed watching, comment with your questions and your feedback, and don't forget to subscribe in case you don't want to miss any new videos. Happy knitting and enjoy the rest of your day.